Chamber. Before we get on to today's webinar, I just wanted to give you all a quick update from Sheffield Chamber. And we're continuing to work closely with all the regional chambers, along with the British Chambers of Commerce, to collate feedback around any issues or concerns that local businesses are facing with regards to accessing the government's coronavirus support packages. This information is being fed back to the BCC and directly into Whitehall. So if you are experiencing any problems or have any questions or concerns regarding anything, then please do not hesitate to get in touch with myself or a member of the Chamber team. Finally, a reminder that as Chamber members, you have access to a suite of essential business support services, such as the 24/7 legal, HR, health and safety, tax and PAYE helpline, where you can speak to fully qualified legal and compliant advisors. And there is also an online portal. This has been fully updated with lots of downloadable documents that I think you'll find really useful during this time. So if you do need reminding of any of your logins to access the helpline or online portal, please contact me after this webinar. So on to today's webinar, a Microsoft Teams tutorial in partnership with Affinity IT, a privately owned business and chamber member based in Sheffield who specialise in IT, telecoms and electrical. Affinity IT were founded by a team of business and IT professionals with a wealth of knowledge spread over many years. Affinity IT are business focused and offer only real world products and solutions aimed at predominantly small to medium sized enterprises. To support this, Affinity are certified Microsoft small business specialists and have been since 2006. I'm delighted to be joined by Viv Brownlee, today's tutor. Viv brings a wealth of experience and has worked in industries ranging from retail, non-profits and international development. And in all of these roles, Viv has been involved in developing, deploying and training solutions using IT and software. As Viv has worked with many different software solutions in different industries, he's ideal for learning and training in bespoke software, as well as in Office and Windows environments. So without further ado, it gives me great pleasure to introduce you to Viv Brownlee. Thanks, Viv.
Good morning all. Thank you for that, Sam. Thanks, Rich. What I'm going to do first, I've already been recording, so just to let you know, what I'm going to do first is to share my screen. And once we share my screen, and we'll come to this later on, I'll give you a brief intro of what we're going to try to do today, what we're going to try to cover, and literally then we'll jump straight into it. You may already have Microsoft Teams. The package that I'm using in Microsoft Teams is the Office 365 one. So I've got the fully fledged package, and obviously if you've got that going on, that's great. You may have a different version of it, so some of these features or some of the settings on your environment might be slightly different, but I'm going to give you hopefully a quick whistle stop demo and tour of the key features of Microsoft Teams. Now, one other quick thing about this is because Microsoft Teams is quite a big package of software, we're not going to be able to delve too deep into any of these areas. It is kind of like touching and looking at every single part of what it does, rather than trying to deep dive into any single individual topic. And I know a lot of people are having to use this, obviously working from home like me. My time shows differently because I'm in an actual different time zone. I'm sitting in a room in my house in Germany. So we're sitting in different time zones or sitting in different things. So part of that is that we've been using, a lot of people have been using Teams and Zoom and other products for webinar style things. And we will touch on that and how you run these with Microsoft Teams, but we're also going to look at the other features of Microsoft Teams, which is more than just the video webinar. So let's jump straight into it here. On my window here, we've got 4 parts to it. We're going to look first at chat, and then we're going to look at Teams, calls, calendar, things like this. So we'll come back to this chat in a minute. I've got a chat going up here with a colleague of mine. I'm going to say good morning to him. It's as simple as that. Chat feature of Microsoft Teams is a bit like any instant message, whether you think of text message, whether you think of WhatsApp, whether you think of AIM, MSM, or anything historically. What happens is you can message back and forwards. And when I'm at this point, because I won't be able to jump into it too much later on, the mobile devices, whether it's a tablet or a computer device, is actually rather useful because the apps on it, whether it's Android, whether it's an Apple device, whether it's a tablet or a phone, gives you an awful lot of extra features and all the stuff that you would do normally in here. Sorry, I did forget one thing and I want to jump back to it to tell you. If you're on the actual meeting, which we all are at the minute, and you do want to actually put a question in here, which we will come to at the end. This button here shows the conversation. There's a hands up feature coming to Microsoft later. Again, we'll mention that later. Here, you can actually type a message in, type a question in. Rich and Sam will be keeping an eye on those and maybe reply to you directly. And if not, we'll look at those at the end and we'll see if we've covered everything that you ask in the questions. So that's brought by looking at the conversation. So apologies that I didn't mention that before. Back to the chat, and Andy's replied as well back to me. It's as simple as that. We're not going to go too much detail into the chat. Just you can do a few things in these, like you can react to a message. You can save a message if it's important. You can edit, delete. You can share it to Outlook, etc. Up at the top here, we've also got the ability to start a video call, start an audio call. Those are voice over IP, obviously. There we go. Please post any questions in here. And we can also share the screen. Now, sharing the screen is what I'm doing currently, and again, I will cover that later on. I won't be actually sharing the screen. You will be able to see it in the recording because if I started to share a different screen, it would swap it over and you wouldn't actually see what I'm doing. The final bit in the top corner here is we can add people to this conversation. We're not actually adding people to the conversation. What we're actually doing is we're starting a new conversation with this person and other people that we do it. So it's kind of group chat. So the similar idea to group chat on WhatsApp or a group message on text message. Down here, we can format our text messages, Now, one thing that I find rather useful here is with Teams, if you're starting to type a message and hit enter, it doesn't bring you to the next line. It actually sends a message. So if I want to do a multi-line message, if I open the format button, it gives me the ability to do a multi-line message and then I can hit send. We've got the ability to do emojis, GIFs, memes, schedule a meeting, and we can attach files here. Attaching files can happen from the paperclip at the bottom. But attaching files can also go from the Files tab at the top. Now, these are the files that I have shared with Andy. And I want to be clear about that. We're actually sharing files here. It's not attachment of actual files and sending them. If it's on your computer, it moves it to your OneDrive. And your OneDrive is your storage space of Office 365. And it shares from that OneDrive a link for the other person to edit. So whether that's an individual person or whether that's a group of people, it will send a share link through to that person. So all I would have to do is hit the share button. If it's already on my OneDrive, it's there. Otherwise, I can upload it from my computer. We can filter these. We can pin messages to the top. Microsoft is bringing something this month. I assume one of the guys will let someone in there. Thank you. Microsoft's bringing something this month. It's scheduled that you can pop these chat windows out. And that's rather useful because if you're actually working in team channels and if you're working in chats, you want to have a few of these windows open because you're popping in and out of them instead of having to close one down, go to another one, open another one. We can also filter the chats. We can look at different ones. We can look at specific keywords or unread messages, etc. So that is chat, instant message. I want to pop down to calls because we're not spending much time on it. It is like a voice over IP system. It can be integrated into phone systems as well, but most of us will just use it as a simple voice over IP. You can look at your contacts. You can look at your history. You do have the option of having a voicemail set up on it. And once a voicemail is left with you, it'll actually transcribe it and put it in here so you'll see the text message of the voicemail as well. You can set up speed dials. It can be synced with your phone or your Outlook contacts. Activity feed is everything that's happening. Messages, replies, responses, filters. You can look at all the replies mentioned. This is rather useful when it starts to get busy. That starts a new chat. But here is a key option here in terms of your settings. If anybody's used Skype, Skype for Business, Link, any of those sort of things, you've got your presence. So it's whether you're available, whether you're busy, do not disturb, etc., etc., etc. I don't know why mine's not picked up the fact that I am on a call because it would normally do that. I think it's maybe because I had preset it as that, but usually it picks up your calendar status. You can have a status message, so that can just tell people what's going on, but also you can actually have it as a out of office reply. So you can actually show it if people message me, and you can decide when that message is cleared. And you can mention somebody else in it. So that's similar to your out of office in email. All your saved messages appear here, and we've got our settings. Under settings, under your devices, you can test your audio and video before you make a call. It's a bit like the Skype test echo if you ever used it historically. What we've also got is you've got your privacy settings, a couple of the key ones here. Under calls, that's where you can set up your voicemail. So you can forward your calls to voicemail after so many seconds, set up a voicemail so it's personalized to you. And notifications is a key one to play with. Because with notifications, what we've got going on is the ability to fine-tune which notifications you get from Microsoft Teams, whether you want to show them in your feed, which is your actually activity and your activity feed over here, whether you want to get emails when things are done, or whether you want them just to pop up as a banner or a pop-up from down here. Your mobile device or your tablet, if you're using it, you can set your notification settings separately, which means that both devices can be giving you different notifications for different things depending on how you use them. So all of this is very much fine-tunable. You can actually show and feed, banner and email, banner, turn off. Even missed activity emails. At the minute, Microsoft does as soon as possible, but you can actually set it for every day. So if you're not using it that day, you get a notification email at the end of the day and it lists everything where you've been mentioned, etc., etc. So that's option. So that's the activity, the calls, the chat. The big part that I want to spend time on, as well as going on to calendar and make sure we get to it, is what's called Teams. It's a bit of a weird one from Microsoft, but Teams is actually a key part of it, is the actual Teams. And this is persistent and consistent chat. Whereas on the chat log, you've got instant messaging. You can set up little groups in there. You can chat back and forward with each other, but there are a few limitations in terms of how they respond to each other, how you reply to each other. And also, if you add someone to a chat, it starts a new one, so they don't see anything from before. If you remove someone from a chat, all their stuff, so it starts to become a little bit, onerous to try to manage that. Whereas actual teams are set up based on Office 365 groups. So you can set them up from scratch, and if it does, it sets up an Office 365 group. And without going too technical in this, an Office 365 group gives you a shared mailbox, a shared calendar, a shared OneNote, a shared SharePoint site, and a group of people. So if you already have groups set up, you can actually do that. If you already have team sites set up, you can actually if you actually have team sites set up, you can actually link to those team sites and they will bring a team through. But you can actually set up new ones as well. The difference between the chat and the Teams is that in Teams you can have multiple channels. And these multiple channels allow you to actually have topics of conversation. So with topics of conversation, what you've got going on is you've got the ability to do, for example, a project or a department, and within that project or within that department, you can actually then have you can have conversations happening in these channels. And I'll show you in a minute how to set up these channels. Another thing that's useful about Teams, and I know we're seeing it here, is you can add external guests into Teams if it's allowed on your tenancy. So you can collaborate with people externally. So this stops the need for multiple emails going around with 16 people CC'd in and somebody missing out on an attachment. It should actually remove a whole lot of the need for having additional emails going around and emails in your organization. And the final thing that's really useful here, as well as some things we're going to show in a minute, but in terms of conversations, is it gives you inline replies. So if I come along here and we've got this going on and I've added these tabs and I'm going, hey, Rich, did you see this? It's inline replies. Hi, Andy. So all of the replies come in a little bit of a reply feed. So every time somebody comments on something or replies to something, it appears here and you see how many replies there are from you and other people. So in a minute, if Andy or Rich replied to that, I would see their reply as well. That's another key part of the key conversation. So even though you've got channels, you can still break down your conversation history here with replies and stuff like that going on. So posts, we've got replies, conversations going on here. There we go. Andy's replied to it. One of the key things as well, I forgot to say, is if you add someone later to a team, they can scroll back through the whole team and see all the conversations, see all the files, see all the back and forward, so you're able to do that. And this shows me a notification, this in bold, and if I hadn't already seen it, it would show it in activity as well. So all of that comes up in my activity log. This is posts. We've seen before about the formatting, the emojis, the GIFs. Let me show you the formatting button here though. If you choose format here, you get the ability to say add a subject header, just like you would add a subject line in an email, and then you can put your conversation in here. But as well as having conversations in Teams, you can do announcements. Announcements work that you can actually do an all company announcement, an all team announcement. You can put a picture in the background, you can put colors in the background, put a subheading, put an announcement. It's like a newspaper, a bulletin, a notification to everyone. You can choose whether it can be replied to, and you can post it in multiple channels. So if you're in charge of multiple channels, you can actually go across all the channels. Please, I want to notify everybody about this, and this notification would appear in everybody's channel. So again, a good way of managing information being passed out throughout the whole organization. So it can be, same can be done with just a conversation. So in multiple channels you can get to. Another difference that we've got down here is we've got this button that's called Meet Now. And what that does, it calls a meeting for everybody that's part of this channel. So if I was in the chamber demo and everybody's in that, and I could say, so we're in the middle of doing a chat about something, we're replying to each other, there's lots of replies going on, and the manager suddenly decides, you know what, this would be much easier if we just had a quick webinar about it, a quick chat, a video call. You can press that button and it starts a video call. Now this button is being moved to the top right hand corner because it's so useful, and that is, I've already seen that happen in one tenancy, so it's coming again by the end of this month. That's conversations, we see it down here. Next part I want to show you is files. Files is similar to the files that we saw before when we shared with on a chat, but the interesting thing here, again with the paperclip, you've got a few more options. So when I do files, it's recent files, Teams and channels, OneDrive, or upload from my computer. The reason for that is it actually saves your files in SharePoint. So SharePoint is the shared workspace in Office 365. And with Teams, you get SharePoint sites every time you set up a Teams site on here. So if anybody's used SharePoint or even any other online document storage, Dropbox, OneDrive especially, this will all be very similar to you. You can create new folders and files from here. You can upload from here. You can actually just drag and drop into this window and the files will be uploaded. If you've got the ability in your organization, you can sync these to the desktop. And what I mean by that is, this here is it's synced to my desktop using the OneDrive for Business app. And that is the exact same layout as here. I can copy the link, I can download it. What we've got going on here is we've got the ability as well though, that each of these, with these three little ellipses, that's the show actions, the menu button on Teams and on web pages to do with Office 365 and other software. You can open it, copy the link, make it a tab. That's what I've done here. I've made this a tab, delete it, open it in SharePoint, move, copy, more. So we've got lots of things that we can do with each of the files. Let me show you what one of them is. One of them was to open in, if I want to do this, I can open this in Excel Online. I can open it in Excel Desktop if I've got it, or I can edit it in Teams. Now, if I choose to edit this document in Teams, it's the same as Excel Online. And Excel Online, Word Online, and PowerPoint Online has become much better than it was in the last couple of years. You can do a lot of things with it. You can mix a lot of changes online. They even allow you to do, for example, on Excel, allows you even to do pivot tables on the version here. So this is Excel Online in here. This makes for actual collaboration of documents happening, because I could be using this version on Teams. Somebody else could be on the online version. Two people could be working on the desktop app version of it, and somebody could be working on the mobile phone app version of Excel or Office. And we would all see what's going on. So up here, we would see a list of who else is using it, and we could see where they're using it, and that is proper collaboration over documents, securely and safely from within your Teams environment and within your SharePoint environment. This saves automatically, so you don't have to do file save as. You also have version control built into SharePoint. So that means if people are changing it and you didn't want to change, or they've overwritten the formula, which happens all the time, or if somebody has got bad grammar or made updates that you didn't want to update, you can open the document in SharePoint and you can roll back the versions. The Microsoft allows you to store up to 999 versions of any file. Another thing though that's really useful about this is if we choose conversation, and if I go, this is the file we were looking at. Feedback, please. What that gives us is it actually then appears here. So we've got that going on. But if I go back to Teams, in Teams itself, and if I go back to the posts, we now have a new conversation in here, which actually is that what we talked about. So I could respond to that, I could open it from here, somebody can reply to it, and you can actually ask for feedback on a file, feedback on a policy, feedback on a document, feedback on an image, and everybody can comment on what their thoughts are in line, replies, likes, etc., etc. So that's rather useful. Back into files a second, because I want to show you that was most of it, so that's fine. When you set up any channel, and again, as I said, I'll talk about the channels in a second, you get three key parts to it. You get posts, you get files, and you get a wiki. You can rename the wiki if you want. You can't rename files or posts. But if you rename, you can remove it as well. A wiki is like a OneNote shared notebook for this here. And we'll come back to the other tabs in a second. But one of the options for under files was make a document a tab. And if I make a document a tab, we can actually have it up here. I've called it monthly stats. And that is that Excel sheet we were looking at live and available on the Teams. We can do it with a lot of different apps. And that means that somebody actually can go in here, edit it, update it. So if you had a monthly sheet that everybody, or a daily sheet that people needed to update, or etc., what you can actually do is use this to have it at the top and say, please fill in first. So again, complete collaboration and communication with people around that area. Channels. If you're a team owner, if you own a team and run the team, you've got lots of options under manage team. We don't have time to go into those in detail, but you've got things like add channel, add members, leave team, edit teams, and even tagging people. But channels, you automatically get a general channel. You can then add other ones. The way I look at it is if you've got a project, you would have the deployment phase, maybe the marketing phase, the manufacturing phase, the design phase, and all of those you could create new channels for. So each channel can be down here. You can hide a channel. I've hidden that myself, and so that's one that I don't need to see about. You can actually turn off notifications on channels as well, but if you needed to show it again, so it means you can tidy this up. We can pin channels up here. So again, if I think this is an important channel, I can pin it to the top. We can get easy access to it there. And as I said, this will be able to be popped out by the end of the month to have that channel available, and you can have a number of them in various windows. But when you create a channel, you do have the option now, it's come in about 3-4 months ago, to create a private channel within the team. Everybody who is invited into the team can see every channel unless it's private. If you're not in a private channel, so if somebody creates a private channel and you're not added to it, you don't even know that channel exists. So that's rather useful to have, say, for example, a finance, or if you work with external contractors and they're all in one team, you can then have private channels for each company, each department within that. So that's an option as well. Last thing I want to talk about on Teams, and as I said, there's so much that we could do here. Oh, I did forget to mention something. There is this @ to mention someone. If I do @ and then I start typing somebody's name, I can actually bring their name up and it notifies them that they've been mentioned, and they will get a notification up on their activity. So this is a way that you can bring people's attention that you need to speak to them about something. The last key part of Teams that makes it a really powerful tool is this plus button, because this plus button allows you to add tabs. And tabs we've seen before, we've seen an Excel one there, but tabs allows me to add, say, for example, other document libraries. It allows me to add websites. It allows me to add SharePoint lists. Websites means you can actually have native websites running from within Teams. You can add extra wikis, PDFs, Word, PowerPoint. Stream is Microsoft's video platform, Power BI if you use it, Planner, which is a version of Project, but a very mini version, so it's kind of a board planner type style thing. Forms, if you use SurveyMonkey or Forms already, you can ask for feedback. The feedback can come straight into Teams, or you could have a form that you fill in and it goes straight through to people in your organization. So for one company that I've worked with, they've had an HR site with policies and procedures, and some of the forms that are along the top are things like change your bank details. But you can also add additional things, like you can link to YouTube, or if you use Adobe, you can link to Adobe and somebody puts the Adobe image straight into the Teams channel and everybody can comment on it. And there are hundreds of Teams. You can even launch Cisco web meetings from within Teams. You can even launch Zoom meetings from within Teams. So to go onto that, Trello, flow, there's loads more, and you can choose manage apps or you can use add apps. Let me show you a couple of these in operation before you move on to video. For example, in this one, that's the Affinity Team website. This is your actual website, live and active. It says it's not loading correctly, but I can actually open it in the web, or I could go straight to that button and it would open that part of the website. Up here as well, I've added a tab called Teams Training. And this here within my organization, this is giving me all the videos to do with training on Teams. So if you've got training videos, you can actually load them from the Microsoft platform called Stream. They do have an app for that as well, for a mobile phone or tablet. And you can put them on here. People can watch them natively from within the Teams environment. So you could have training videos, IT training videos, policy videos, anything you want sitting through on there. So that's an example of two. If I go to the chamber one that we've on here, I've added one here. Oh, I did add the wiki to this one and put a few comments in here, I think. So this could be, no, I didn't on this one. This could be where you put lists of websites that people need to access, lists of resources, lists of information, lists of how to use this site. But there's a chamber website. So we actually have an active live website. You could log in from here if you actually have it in Teams. And I've even added and linked to one of the previous chamber videos on the COVID-19. And this is actually an embedded YouTube video straight into Teams. So Teams want to become the key point of contact for all of your working and communication and this sort of thing. So this is embedded from, we just grabbed the video link, put it in here. It's a video that we have access to, so it plays immediately through Teams, whether that's on my mobile tablet or on my computer. Now let's jump back into the calendar, and in a second I'm going to jump into the team. Another way of meeting is to meet now. And then that creates a meeting, and from that point I can invite people to it, either people in my organization, or I can copy the link, which I'll show in a minute, and then we can send it out. The normal one would be this one. We would be looking to use the new meeting. And from this point we can add a title to the meeting, we can put in required attendees, we can choose the recurrence of it, and we can add a channel. Adding a channel is like adding a room. Everybody in that channel gets notified about it. It puts it in the channel. You don't have to remember all 40 people that are part of your channel and invite them all individually. And they get the ability then to, so if I did it here, everybody in that will be invited to it and be told about it. Once I do an invite, I get the link. And I'll show you that link in a second from one of the other ones, instead of constantly inviting other people to meetings that I'm not going to have. So I'll just close that down, discard it. When I'm here, before I do anything else, let me just show you something else. If I'm on here, on my calendar, on Outlook, apologies, we do have the option of starting a new Teams meeting from there. So the same idea of creating an appointment. And when you do it from your Outlook calendar, and this only works if your Outlook is connected to 365 and your calendar's on there, you've got the meeting options, you've got join Microsoft Teams, you can invite people from there. The link that you send out to people is there. So if you want to send it as a link and a BCC and an email, you can do so. And I want to show you the security around the link. That's the meeting link for today, and that's the security around it. There is no way that anybody could actually work out what that meeting link was. So it's a very secure meeting link. So that's rather useful as well. So all of that can happen from your Outlook. And you can join it obviously on Outlook, or you can join it from Outlook, you can join it in Teams, you can join a meeting on a web page, whether it's Edge or Chrome, and you can join it from a mobile device. When you invite people, they don't even need a Microsoft account. All they need is an email address or the invite link. It will direct them to the App Store, download it, and join the meeting. There is limitations within some organizations of whether anonymous people can attend, but that's to do with your settings. When we look at this, we'll go into this one here and look at the settings on it as well. There's always something here called meeting options and meeting options here. This opens in a web page. They are going to bring it internally into Teams eventually, but at the minute it opens on a web page, and it opens here. And what this does, it allows me to choose meeting options. So meeting options allows me to choose who can bypass the lobby. And if everyone is not very secure, because that means anyone invited to the meeting or anybody with the link can come in straight from the lobby. People in my organization and trusted organizations is quite useful, or people in my organizations only. This allows whether you audio people to bypass the lobby, announces when people come in or out, and who can present. This is partly security, partly something, partly just who you want to present. because you can choose people in my organization to present, only specific people, or only me. So you can actually set 3 or 4 people as the presenters, and everybody else then can't take over the screen and can't do certain things. So those are both how the meeting runs, but also your security features. The default for most organizations is only people in your organization can bypass the lobby, and I'll show you a lobby in a second where we brought everyone in. So your defaults are probably okay. I'm going to jump back into this meeting, hit join. I'm already in it, but I'm going to jump back into this meeting and show you these. Obviously, we've got the camera here. We got the microphone here. This is a screen sharing. When you go to share screen, which will show in the video, you get the options of sharing your whole desktop. You get the options of sharing any open window. So whether that's a web page, whether that's a Word document, whether that's a PowerPoint presentation, and you can choose whether you want to involve bringing in your system audio. I chose to share my whole window, and if you use multi-monitor, you can choose which monitor to share, because I wanted to be able to show things like the Word document, the web page, the start menu, etc. Show participants over here. This is also your lobby. So that's how you would create a link from another meeting and invite people into it. You can copy that and send it. This is everybody muted. You can mute it as an organizer. You can remove people as an organizer. You could remove a participant. You can make them an attendee. An attendee means they can only listen. That's quite useful if you are doing actual webinars, or if you've got a really large meeting. You can mute everyone. You can make them all attendees. If you've only got limited presenters, you're automatically making people attendees. The limits on Teams is you can have up to 250 people in any Teams call. And if you need more than that for a webinar, you get an e-license, and the e-license can give you live events of up to 10,000 people. And you can actually edit it off the computer and have a full-on editing suite going on as well. The chat log, which we've got there, which a few people have put in, we'll look at in a minute, and that's the normal chat log for the meeting. And I want to show you a few things about that in a second. More actions. The device settings, which we did before, the meeting notes, full screen if you wanted to show it on the big screen. Background effects, you may see that we've got backgrounds. If your graphic cards allows, and most new computers do, you can actually blur your screen. If you could blur your screen before, you can actually put in background effects. And you can actually use the preset ones by Microsoft, or you can actually load your own to a folder on your desktop or on your computer, and then you can use your own backgrounds. The new thing, live captions, keypad to call people in, recording and stop recording. It uses the Microsoft Stream to actually render the video. You can actually add closed captions to the rendered video. You can actually download the transcript of your meeting that's been captured with the closed captions, and then you would have a transcript of the meeting. If there's a lot of people on and your bandwidth is an issue, you can turn off the incoming video as well. At the minute, they only do 2 by 2, so only 4 people on the screen. Within the next 2 weeks, that's going to 3 by 3, and they are also saying hopefully by the end of June it's going to 4 by 4, so that would be 9 in the next 2 weeks, and then 16. And last week I saw on somebody's the little hand up feature, which is really useful in larger meetings. It's coming, and it will appear beside the show conversation, so people in the meeting will be able to put their hand up, and the meeting organizer gets notified that somebody's got a query. The last thing about meetings to talk about is here. Every single meeting has a persistent, consistent presence on chat. So here is the chat log, which we've got going on here. So you can actually set up a meeting and you can start chatting beforehand. This was chatted about yesterday. So you can actually start, do we need to know this for the meeting? Do you want us to bring this? Are we presenting this? You can also attach files to it beforehand. So you can attach your guidance, you could attach the agenda, you could attach the minutes afterwards, you can share with it files that they need to look at, update and review before the actual meeting. So this becomes a repository for the actual meeting. This is where I put notes yesterday, meeting notes off the meeting. Somebody could take notes during it, but you can also put action points. You can add somebody, and with that you can then put all the details in and create action points, and they would be fed out through to the meeting. And it also has the ability to have a whiteboard. Now, I very wonderfully on my whiteboard yesterday, I put the word whiteboard using my mouse. It mightn't even show up. It's not loading as quick as I'd like it to, so we'll probably come back to the main page. But the whiteboard is rather useful when you're doing things like working on tablets, working on mobile phones. You need to show a picture and you need to graphically measure it up. And the last thing about meetings is when you're in a meeting and presenting, you can give control. Now, we've set it up that we give control to anybody if we want, and somebody can request control. Usually it's set up just within your organization. So you can give control across to someone else who can take over an Excel web sheet to change something. You can give control, and somebody might be able to fix something on your computer or guide you through a step-by-step process, or you can do the same to them. This button is to include system audio. So if you're playing a presentation, it will actually use the native audio from the video rather than trying to pick up your tinny mic from your tinny, use your tinny mic to pick up your tinny speakers on your laptop, which was what mine would be. And then you can stop presenting also at any time. And I think with all of that, let's just show you apps button here allows you to add loads more apps in. You can search for them all. This is where you see, for example, you can link in with Zoom. You can hunt through hundreds upon thousands of apps that link into this. And if your organization's got an IT department that can do it, or other people, you can actually create your own app to bring your own data straight through to Teams as well, to have it sitting in your organization. And I think I have finished, and I don't think I've missed anything that I want to speak about. So back over to Sam.
Thanks, Viv. Really interesting. I've got some questions, but I just want to remind people that are on the call, if they do want to pop something in the questions box, and I'll put it to Viv. But a couple of things. First thing, Viv, I wondered, how do you change your background screen?
Yep. So we looked at it briefly there, but when we do show background effects, it is limited. If you've got an older machine, maybe a desktop machine, if you're in the office, or if you've got one that's really old and doesn't have a valid graphics card. Firstly, you have to, if you want to put your own on, you have to use one of these backgrounds that Microsoft provides. That creates a new folder in your app data. And then you go through the process, and maybe we'll put underneath the YouTube video that goes out, we'll actually put in the link in your app data folder where you can go and put in your own graphics, your own background, your own picture, your own logo, whatever you want to put in the background. But you must use one of Microsoft ones first. Use the 3 dots, and it's now called background effects.
How do you change the screen view to show multiple people?
Well, what you've got, as I said at the minute, you've got 4 by 4 people, and that's a limitation that is with Zoom taking off and working from home. I don't think Microsoft saw it as something that was a big deal, the 4 people, rather than more. And I do think sometimes 49 is a bit excessive, but they do have the ability now that they're going, as I said, within the next 2 weeks. I said the end of this month, or the start of this first week of next month is when it'll be rolled out to the whole worldwide. At the minute, you can pin people that you want to see, and the way it works is you can pin people by choosing there, and you can pin a participant to it, fit the frame. So you can actually put, and the way Microsoft works it is that whoever's speaking, whoever's active on the audio, they will actually use that to show those people. So it will rotate round people if everybody's speaking. The same's going to happen with 3 by 3, but they've put a few extra bits in there. Whereas if somebody's bandwidth is absolutely terrible, they won't show them on the 9 by 9 if you've got, or the 3 by 3 if you've got more than 9 people. So they're going to prioritize higher bandwidth, people with non-jerky videos, etc., on the 9. And as I said, they want to go to 16 at the end of their financial year, which is the end of June. So yeah, I want to jump in and say something there. Microsoft, this is apples and pears when you compare it with Zoom. Zoom is absolutely brilliant when it comes to just having a full-on webinar with a load of people in it, but the persistent and consistent nature of Teams allows you to have file sharing, constant communication, chat, and it's end-to-end encrypted in transit. It's not, obviously, if it's not encrypted on your machine, it's not encrypted on your machine. It is very secure, both in terms of video, but also in terms of file sharing and chat and instant message and chat. You still probably want to have it all backed up. It helps with your GDPR as well, because it's all within your Office 365 environment. It can be retained and it can be backed up. Whereas you're moving data back and forward between it. So it is apples and pears, different things for different reasons, but Teams really comes into place when you want to have organizational data sharing, chatting, video calls, meetings, and then having the security around it as well. And as I said, they're moving on some things on the video platform that they see other people are looking. Microsoft are moving fast on the video platform at the minute because of other organizations doing really well with it.
Yeah, completely agree. I think its capabilities are far exceed what Zoom can do, and It's obviously all linked in, especially if you're using Office 365. It's great. So can it? I don't know if you did cover it. Sorry, Viv, if you did, but can you do breakouts during calls?
At the minute, there is a workaround for breakouts because you can actually, I could set up a few other meetings using either the meeting here or the meeting in my calendar, and we could put those links in here. And with those links in, we could say, right, people, here's the different links for the different breakouts, and it would go, and up in this corner, they would have 2 videos going on, so they could flip between them. It's not native, it's a workaround, but again, it's something that's on Microsoft's radar. I think the thing with Microsoft as well, and I don't work for Microsoft at all, but one of the things for Microsoft is because it encapsulates so much, they've got to watch that if they put something in place, it doesn't break something else. It doesn't break the security, but yes, you've got that going on. One company-wide team with channels for groups members within their own team. Sorry. Here's a question. One company-wide team with channels for groups, teams within company, or separate teams with their own channels to group different topics. Depending on the size of your organization, private channels are limited to 30 channels per team. So that there is a limit on the number of channels as well. An organization-wide team allows you to have up to 10,000 people in it, so there's no issue there. But you're limited to 30 private channels. So with that, you've got the question of, do you want to have one massive team with lots and lots and lots of channels in it? I would guess you're probably, your company-wide one, there's far too many notifications in the general tab if everybody's using it. And then you'd have to, if it's a large company, you would have to start really going down the line of lots of private channels going on. So I do think that a limited number of teams per organization is a rather good idea with separate channels. So whether that's departmental or project-based would be the two that people would look at. And we have another question there from Andy, which is, please clarify how teams use OneDrive and SharePoint. Well, OneDrive is your personal space on SharePoint. So if you're in Office 365, the default setting is 1 terabyte of storage on OneDrive, and your organization has got space on SharePoint. So if we think of OneDrive, OneDrive's your home space, your desktop, your H drive, or whatever it was called on your organization, where you put your personal documents. And SharePoint is your shared drive, your S, your X, your T, whatever it was called on your organization. So if you don't use that currently and you still use a file server, any files that you put into OneDrive or into Teams will be shared there as well within your organization or to any external people. OneDrive is used for the chat sharing. SharePoint is used for your team sharing. So with your teams and you put anything in, it goes into the SharePoint, and it is a shared link that is created among your organization. So that's how it uses it. It's all integrated.
Viv, yeah. Would you say Microsoft Teams is the most secure platform?
It is the minute, yeah. I think some of there's Cisco WebEx is pretty darn good in its security. There's a couple of reports released recently by the Mozilla Foundation and various things like that that reviewed them all, even Facebook's new offerings and things like that. In terms of one organization I work for, and I'll give you an example. When they do their staff meeting, which is just a catch-up, they use Zoom. So everybody's face is seen, about 30 or 40 people. As soon as they go to work, rather than just a catch-up staff meeting, they immediately move on to Teams, because then all of the client's data, private and confidential, is not being discussed on a platform. It's end-to-end encrypted. As I said, you've got to check whether it's encrypted on your device and on your server. Videos, chats, everything is end-to-end encrypted on Teams. So, and it does also help with your GDPR, never mind Zoom bombing and all the other stuff we've heard. It also helps with your GDPR because you're not actually moving data outside your organizational elite tenancy. It's within the boundaries. So yeah, I would say generally for the whole, it's the most secure.
No. Okay, I just want to bring Rich in from Affinity IT. If there's no further questions, Rich, do you want to just add anything?
No, just thank you to everyone for attending today. Obviously, Viv's a bit of an expert on Teams, so hopefully you've learned something from it. I'll pop into the chat any details if you want to get in touch with us, and also if you can any question you've got after the tutorial today, you can also ask in this chat on Teams, and we'll respond to those as well. So thank you for attending.
Yeah, thanks, Rich. So yeah, please, give you 30 seconds just to fire any questions over, last questions over. If not, please get in touch with Rich afterwards. His email address will be in the questions box shortly. Viv, do you want to add any final pointers, tips, hints?
No, I think with that, there's so much that you've got going on with Teams that it does take a bit of time of playing with it. You generally can't overly break Teams. I'm sure everything can be broken, but you can actually set things up, play with it, try it out. I would suggest trying the other features. A lot of people have been using the video part of it. Try the other features as well, because it makes life so much easier. I've managed to get a whole pile of people to work on Teams who weren't before, and have suddenly found the collaboration features of it and the consistent and persistent chat features of it is rather useful. Thank you for everybody for your time today.
Yeah, thanks for joining, everybody. Thanks, Viv. Bye, everyone.